I'm gonna ask you a question. Who's winning the World Cup? You're probably gonna say the best team, or the most talented players, maybe home field advantage, or even just luck. All of those sound reasonable, right? But the data? It doesn't back any of them up. I used to think the same thing, until I started looking at every single World Cup in history. Until I started seeing a pattern. Actually, not just one, 3. And these 3 data points repeat every single tournament without exception. Today, I'm gonna break down these 3 points for you. But let me be clear, these aren't some basic-ass observations like the team with the most shots wins. These are things that have been staring everyone in the face for over 90 years. But nobody ever bothered to put them together and say, wait a damn minute, this is a rule. If you're ready, let's get into it. The age debate in football never ends. Should you go with a young squad or an experienced one? Every time a big tournament rolls around, they ask the same question, and they get a different answer. But nobody asks, what do the numbers actually say? The sports stats platform RotoWire did a pretty wild study. They calculated the average squad age of the last 10 World Cup champions. The result? Almost every champion landed in the exact same window, 25 to 29 years old. No exceptions, 0. Think about that. 10 different tournaments, 10 different champions, 10 different countries, 10 different football cultures, 10 different managers. And every single one had an average squad age between 25 and 29. The average is literally 26.91. But the crazy part isn't the average, it's the extremes. The youngest champion, 2010 Spain. Average age? Exactly 25. Back then, everyone was saying, they're too young, they're gonna fold under the pressure. Spain lifted the trophy. The oldest champion, 2006 Italy. Average age? 28.80. Everyone was saying, they're too old, their style is dead. Italy lifted the trophy. Both of them landed perfectly inside that window. This window basically represents the intersection of physical, peak, and tactical maturity. A team under 25 is still learning how to keep their cool on the big stage. A team over 30 has learned, but they've lost the physical capacity to keep that intensity up. This data point on its own isn't a prophecy, but it is a hell of a filter. No team outside this window has ever won in the history of the tournament. So whoever doesn't pass this test, no matter how young, no matter how shiny the roster, history is against them. Now let's move to the second data point. This one is way sharper than the first. 1930, Montevideo, Uruguay. The first World Cup. Since then, we've had 22 tournaments, 22 different champions, each one a different country, a different style, a different era. But there was one thing they all had in common. The winning head coach, always, without exception, was a citizen of that country. When you hear that, you might think, okay, isn't that normal? But hold on a second and look at today's world football. Brazil is managed by Carlo Ancelotti. He's Italian. England is managed by Thomas Tuchel. He's German. Portugal is managed by Roberto Martinez. He's Spanish. These guys are ranked among the most successful coaches on the planet. You can't even count the trophies in Ancelotti's cabinet, but they haven't won a World Cup. Because they haven't tried before? Well, what about the foreign coaches who did try? Wikipedia's list of all-time World Cup managers makes it crystal clear. In 22 tournaments, only 2 foreign coaches have ever even reached a final. George Rayner, the Englishman managing Sweden in 1958, and Ernst Happel, the Austrian managing the Netherlands in 1978. Both of them lost the final. Just 2 people. And both of them lost. Why does this happen? There's no official explanation. But if you look at where the data points, the World Cup is arguably the hardest coaching test in the world. You're not working with your players every day like at a club. You only see them a few days a week. And in that short window, you have to nail the tactics, build that cultural bond, and make split-second decisions under insane pressure. For a foreign coach, building that bond is way harder than it is for a guy who's one of their own. The players look at you differently. You look at them differently. The stuff spoken in the locker room, the shared history, the national identity. You're trying to build all that in the middle of a tournament. A local manager already carries that bond in his blood. Years. 22 tournaments. 0 foreign champions. It's not an official rule. FIFA didn't write a statute. But the data says it is. And asking, who's gonna win the World Cup without knowing this data means you're ignoring half the equation. Now, let me hit you with the biggest misconception in football. We've all got this equation in our heads. Score more goals, go further. The highest scoring team is the strongest, and the strongest team wins the cup. Sounds logical, but it's wrong. Wikipedia's FIFA World Cup statistics page includes this line. Fewer than half of all World Cup tournaments have been won by the team that scored the most goals in that tournament. Read that again. Fewer than half, most of the time. The highest scoring team doesn't take home the trophy. Let me put that into perspective. Russia World Cup. The highest scoring team in that tournament was Belgium with 16 goals. The most prolific squad, the flashiest attack. The result? 3rd place. The champion was France with 14 goals, 2 behind Belgium. But France was the one who lifted the trophy. Quanto irá Qatar World Cup. This is probably the most striking example. The highest scoring team in that tournament was, again, France, 16 goals. And on top of that, the Golden Boot came from France. Kylian Mbappé scored 8 goals on his own and even bagged a hat trick in the final, one of the best final performances in history. France still lost. Argentina won the tournament with 15 goals. Mbappé got the Golden Boot, but he didn't get the cup to 2 tournaments. 2 times, the exact same pattern. The highest scoring team made it to the final and still lost. Why does this happen? The data doesn't give a full answer, but it shows one thing. Winning the World Cup isn't about scoring goals. It's about scoring the right goal, in the right match, at the right moment. Tournament football isn't league football. In a league, your total goal count over dozens of matches matters. But in the World Cup, you have very few games, and a single mistake in any one of them sends you home. That's why consistency, efficiency, and defensive balance are worth way more than drowning in goals. 3 data points. Each one is crazy on its own, but together, they tell a much stronger story. The 25-29 age window, the sweet spot of physical peak and tactical maturity. The local coach, a pattern that hasn't broken in 94 years. And the most efficient team, not the highest scoring one, the true law of the tournament. The number of teams that pass through these 3 filters is always small. And one of those few teams lifts the trophy at every single World Cup. Of course, this data isn't a fortune teller. Football is still football. A penalty, a red card, an injury, anything can change in a second. But I can tell you this, teams that carry these 3 traits have maintained an overwhelming dominance over those that don't throughout history. And maybe most importantly, none of the pundits ever told you this. Nobody looked into the camera and said, foreign coaches can't win the World Cup. Nobody said, the top scorers don't win the tournament. This stuff was hidden deep in the history books and the stat platforms. Now, you know too. And the next time you're watching a World Cup final, and those 2 teams are standing on the pitch, you're gonna remember this data. And maybe, in that moment, you'll realize that some results aren't just luck, they're the data itself. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button so you don't miss the new videos. See ya in the next ones.